Hey everybody, here we're on chapter 19, continuous change, and I'm going to stick to my Walmart wants to be like Neiman's example because I think most of us can certainly relate to Walmart. And if you haven't been to a Neiman Marcus or a Saks Fifth Avenue or some of the very, very upscale department stores, even even Sears is a bit a cut above Walmart. But let's just stay with something like Neiman Marcus, very upper end kind of store, as I used that as an example last week. So here are the learning objectives. You can stop the pause here and take a look at them if you like. Criteria for effective strategic change. In other words, if we're going to change our Walmart into a Neiman's, we've got to be able to do this. We've got to be able to be fast instead of being delayed. We have to cover the entire scope of everything that we do. We just can't change one or two little departments in the Neiman and the rest of them don't shift. We've got to be flexible in how we do things. We can't be too rigid. We can't have too many expectations. And if they're not met, everything stops. If they're not met, everything stops. Empowerment means we've got to give the people the power to do the things instead of one person at the top screaming down at every micromanaging minute. It's got to be simple to go forward with this. It certainly would be a pretty significant change, but it has to be simple enough. The change itself has to be simple enough. If it's too complex, it won't get done. And unity means we're all in this together as opposed to little fragments of people who are trying to get this done. So here's a little diagram of strategic excuse me, a dynamic strategy system. So things are changing. Here's the environment. So Walmart has decided we need to become a Neiman for whatever the reason is. We'll make it up. And then down here is the statement of strategic direction. You can see interrelates to strategic process. In other words, if Walmart says, we're going in this direction to be like Neiman Marcus, then the process of their strategy needs to be in alignment with what they're trying to do. And also, on the bottom line down here, evolving resources and capabilities, they have to have the resources necessary to make that kind of a change. So elements of a statement of strategic direction, if Walmart decided we're going to convince our employees and our customers that we're going to do this, it has to be competitive logically. They have to have value propositions. They have to say, hey, it's better for you if we go upscale like a Neiman's. And here's the target for achievement, financial targets, and a goal. So this is if we want to look like Neiman's because, and this is what we're going to do by this time with this financial goal, how we're going to organize ourselves, that this new design has to align with how we do work, how we structure ourselves, how we find human resources, so how we find and hire and train and even exit our people, how we manage our processes to be like a Neiman instead of a Walmart. And then the action plan is the specific steps required to implement the strategy. How are we going to do this through time, step by step? And here are the stages. Choosing the relevant stakeholders, who's in there, who's in this with us. Having the first retreat, that means an executive retreat. We go off and we say, okay, we're getting ready. Let's get all the leaders together and figure out how we're going to do this. Then we have to engage the stakeholders, which would be the employees and others who may say, why in the world are we doing this? Wow, okay, and then we come back and have another retreat, and then we hold the second retreat again. These are the executives getting together. And they say, well, we made the announcement, we went out, we talked to them, we're back here again having another retreat, and here's what we plan to do and how we're going to implement it. Now it shifts to self-designing organizations. And this gets a little bit complex. That self-designing means there isn't a designer that just by what it does systemically as an organization, it starts to change itself. So now we see Walmart starting to change itself slowly into Neiman Marcus kind of an organization. It's ongoing. Of course, continuous change means it's continuous. You never really arrive. You have to learn as you go. You have to have lots of support from a lot of people and all levels throughout the entire organization. All of Walmart needs to adopt these new behaviors and change behaviors to look like a Neiman Marcus. And this is a little diagram of that process. Here's the strategy. This is what we're trying to do. So we come in and we say we have these values now. We want to look more quality. We want to push it up a notch. We have to acquire the knowledge and diagnose our abilities to change from a Walmart to a Neiman's using this kind of criteria: higher level quality, higher priced goods, more qualified employees, and so on. Then we design it, and then we implement the assessment and go forward. So in order to do that, we have to be good at learning. And then we're talking about learning organizations in this chapter. And organizational learning And it's about the organization. We're emphasizing structures and social processes. So this is about people. And so we as people are learning how to act more like a Neiman Marcus, and our employees and teams learn and share the knowledge. Knowledge learning means that we have the tools and the techniques. We have new software, we have new trainers, we have people coming in from the outside. Whatever it is, it's going to take us to this place. We have to collect, organize, and translate this information into knowledge that we can use as we translate or change from Walmart to Neiman's. And then this is another nifty little chart, how learning affects performance. We start over here. We're changing our structure, maybe our information systems, technology, HR practices. Our culture starts to change from a Walmart culture to a Neiman's culture. Our leadership is taking there. Our organization starts to learn. We start to discover and invent and produce and generalize what we're learning across all the different new Neiman Marcus / old Walmart stores. And this organizational knowledge, tacit means the things that we have in our head, explicit means the things that we have written down in books or in digital records somewhere. We put all that together with this strategy that we have to compete and win by going from Walmart to a Neiman type store, and then that leads to our organizational performance. So here's some characteristics of learning organizations. Structures, remember this terminology from last week and the week before, and if you forgot what this meant, go take a look at it. But the structure is the org chart, information systems are technology, HR is HR, and the culture is kind of what happens as all of this moves into operation. And of course, leaders model the openness and freedom to try new things. We're trying a new thing. We're moving from Walmart to Neiman's. This is going to be really fun, we hope. Okay, organizational learning. Single loop learning means we're really good at doing what doesn't work. It's the most common form of learning. We're trying to adapt and improve the status quo. So in this case, we would say, well, this isn't Walmart learning to be Neiman's. This is Walmart trying to just be Walmart. Double loop learning means we're going to generate new ideas, new directions. It's going to be a very significant change. And we're going to even change our existing assumptions. Existing assumptions about Walmart is Walmart's always just a Walmart. You know, they all look the same. No, we're going to change those assumptions and say, no, Walmart can be upscale. Change your assumption about what are you assuming when you go to Walmart. Well, we've got to change those assumptions if we're going to look like a Neiman Marcus. And deuteral learning is learning how to learn. Just like some of you students, some of you who are listening right now may have been out of school for a number of years, even decades or more, and now you're having to relearn how to learn. Same thing with an organization that wanted to change itself from a Walmart to a Neiman Marcus. They would have to learn how to learn and how to improve this single and double loop learning. Again, up here is doing a lot of what doesn't work. Here, you're starting to ask yourself the question, what is it that we need to do different and better than what we were doing in single loop learning. Organizational learning activities, these are the things that the organizations do in order to learn. They discover theories. Their theory in use means this is the way we do things. This is what we think is theoretically the right thing to do, and the consequences. So Walmart's saying, well, the way thing we always thought would be the best for us is to be a low-priced, big store provider all over the country, kind of medium quality goods. Now we want to go into higher quality goods, different kind of an environment, blah, blah, blah. Then we have to do what? Invent and produce more effective theories. So we have to be thinking different. We have to make some different assumptions about how Walmart will behave. How are we going to behave as a Walmart that's in transition to a Neiman Marcus? Attend to the knowledge management practices. In other words, how do we manage all that knowledge and information that we have, that tacit and explicit knowledge that I mentioned a minute ago? And monitor and improve the learning process. You know, we really are starting to change our stores pretty soon, and we just have to really pay attention to what we're doing as we start to transform ourselves from the Walmart view, the Walmart feel, the Walmart everything, to an upscale Neiman Marcus type store. And then we have to find out, how do we discover our theories in use? In other words, how do we discover what our habits are, habits that are so unconscious to us that we don't even notice them. The way we do that is through dialogue sessions, through something called an action map, where we figure out these are the actions that we take, and sometimes we don't even notice them, but these are the things we do. The left-hand, right-hand column is an approach to dialogue. You can read that in the book. The ladder of inference is coming up. There it is. The ladder of inference says that I start down here and I say, observe something that's going on. Okay? whatever that is. You can say, you know, I observe the behavior of my next door neighbor, and my next door neighbor just moved in, and he or she's a different nationality than me. I'm a purple, and he's a yellow or a green. And so I'm watching this purple person. I select data, and I see these purple people doing some things, and I add meaning because they're doing things I never would have thought. I had personal meetings, and I say, well, they're purple and I'm green, and purple people just, oh man, they're weird people, and I would never do that. And I make assumptions based on the meanings that I added to that. So now I'm assuming, and these are weird people. I think they ought to be out of here. And then I start to draw some conclusions. And then I adopt my beliefs about the world, and I take action. We see the same thing going on in Iraq right now with the Sunnis and the other one. I can't think of I can't even think of it right now in the middle of this lecture. But right now, the Iraq is being overrun from the north down through the south with radical terrorists and all the whole thing. And I mean, that's great. When you look at Al Qaeda, look at Catholicism, look at Judaism, look at political systems, it's the same thing. We observe something until finally we act on it. And we're not assuming, if we don't notice this data, the meanings, and the assumptions that we are taking before we take the action, and we get caught up in the action itself. And it could be serving us well, and it could also not be serving us well. Knowledge management practices that support learning. This is the way that we learn in organizations. We identify knowledge for competitive strategy. What do we need to know to compete as a new Neiman Marcus type Walmart? And develop ways to acquire or create that knowledge. So if we're going to shift Walmart to an upscale store, now we're going to have to compete with the other upscale stores. How do we do that? We're used to being Walmart, for God's sakes. Now we're going to be an upscale store. How do we do that? We have to discover ways, develop that knowledge, put that knowledge in some kind of a usable form, learn from it, codify it, and personalize it, make it useful for the employees, and then distribute it. So this is the way that we're going to become a Neiman Marcus kind of store. Organizations that are built to change, designed with the ability to change constantly to create the best sustainable stores. So as we're under our way becoming a Neiman Marcus, we might find, oh, we may need to change a couple of things about this or that department or this or that approach to sales and marketing in order to compete more effectively. And organizations operate in a complex and rapidly changing environment. We know that from handheld devices and iPhones and things like that, how fast things are changing. Design guidelines for built-to-change organizations, and you can just read this. The strategy has to move from short-term to long-term to design, focus on efficiency over effectiveness and so on. You can stop and take a look at that if you like. Built-to-change application stages. All right, so here's what we do. First, we reframe the culture as a facilitator of change. In other words, we've got to get everybody in Walmart that works for Walmart feeling pretty good and friendly about changing our culture from a Walmart culture to a Neiman Marcus type culture. We have to redefine the organizational design components. In other words, built to change designs, flat, lean, and flexible. We've got to get rid of 7 or 8 or 9 layers of management if we want to go through this change. It has to be far less, maybe 2 or 3 or 4 layers of management. And the HR practices have to support managing the right talent. We need the right type of talent. We need the right kind of HR to find us the talent that we need to change this thing from Walmart to Neiman Marcus. And then we have to redefine leadership to be shared throughout the organization. So orchestration capability means we've got the leadership we need to continue and make this whole thing work. And that's the end of chapter 19. I hope you enjoyed it. Good chapter, and I hope this Walmart and Neiman Marcus example is working for you well. See you in chapter 20.